The new precedence on emergency proclamation. The Yang di-pertuan Agong decision last Sunday, October 25, 2020, to reject the Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin request to declare a state of emergency in Malaysia has cast the spotlight on the Yang di-pertuan Agong role under a rarely used provision in the federal constitution. Here, I'll disclose the reason for the rejection of the request made by Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. Here, we will analyze the official statement by Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin on October 25, 2020. Under Article 40 Clause 1 and Article 40 Clause 1A of the Federal Constitution, the Yang di-pertuan Agong shall accept and act on advice when carrying out his functions under the Constitution or federal laws. Article 40 Clause 1 expressed that, in the exercise of his functions under this Constitution or federal law, the Yang di-pertuan Agong shall act in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet or of a minister acting under the general authority of the Cabinet, except as otherwise provided by this Constitution, but shall be entitled, at his request, to any information concerning the government of the Federation which is available to the Cabinet. Article 40 Clause 1A expressed that, in the exercise of his functions under this Constitution or federal law, where the Yang di-pertuan Agong is to act in accordance with advice, on advice, or after considering advice, the Yang di-pertuan Agong shall accept and act in accordance with such advice. On October 23, 2020, Prime Minister met the Yang di-pertuan Agong and carrying with him, Article 150 Clause 1 and Clause 2b, to advise the Yang di-pertuan Agong for the proclamation of emergency in Malaysia. Article 150 Clause 1 expressed that, if the Yang di-pertuan Agong is satisfied that a grave emergency exists whereby the security, or the economic life, or public order in the Federation or any part thereof is threatened, he may issue a proclamation of emergency making therein a declaration to that effect. According to Article 40 Clause 1 and Clause 1a, the Yang di-pertuan Agong shall accept and act in accordance with such advice from the Prime Minister and his Cabinet for the proclamation of emergency to be made in Malaysia. However, Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin and his entire Cabinet forget to bring with them Article 33 Clause 3 of the Federal Constitution, when they met the Yang di-pertuan Agong. Article 43 Clause 3, expressed that, the Cabinet shall be collectively responsible to Parliament. Meaning, the Cabinet decision to activate Article 150 for the proclamation of emergency need to be laid down in the House of Representatives, Dewan Rakyat, in the Senate, Dewan Negara, before it can get the royal assent from the Yang di-pertuan Agong. This is the main reason the advice by the Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin for the proclamation of emergency was rejected by the Yang di-pertuan Agong. Due to the lack of constitutional procedure to activate Article 43 Clause 3 by Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin for the proclamation of emergency, and there was no provision in the federal constitution that expressed the Prime Minister and his Cabinet can advise directly the Yang di-pertuan Agong on the proclamation of emergency, the Constitutional Convention has been activated for the Yang di-pertuan Agong to make a decision on the matter. Constitutional Convention or the customary practice of the Constitution is a non-legislative practice and it is similar to the political ethics and not enforced in court. Although it seems trivial, it is important for this practice to be complied with, otherwise it is difficult for the Constitution to work successfully as the Constitutional Convention cannot be brought to court and forced to be obeyed. According to the Federal Constitution, the Prime Minister and his Cabinet can only advise the Yang di-pertuan Agong for the proclamation of emergency after the motion has been approved in Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. This is based on Article 43 Clause 3 of the Federal Constitution, as the Cabinet shall be collectively responsible to Parliament. As there is no provision in the Federal Constitution that expressed the Prime Minister and his Cabinet can directly advise the Yang di-pertuan Agong on the proclamation of emergency, the Constitutional Convention was activated for the Yang di-pertuan Agong to make a decision. This is how the new precedents come into being in the first place. The new precedent was that, on October 25, 2020, the Yang di-pertuan Agong having a meeting with the rulers to decide on the matter. That is why, the official statement from Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin specifically mentioned that the decision to reject the advice on proclamation of emergency was made based on the principle of constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy. This is a clear indication that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the rulers are indirectly advising the Prime Minister to observe the federal constitution, and in this case, to observe Article 43 Clause 3, where the motion on proclamation of emergency should be laid in Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara before it can get royal assent. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the rulers also make a statement that check and balance mechanism between the executive, legislature and judiciary must be observed. Again, here, the statement is clear, although indirectly, that the cabinet must get an approval from the parliament before proclamation of emergency can take effect. This is based on Article 43 Clause 3 of Federal Constitution. This is the meaning of the official statement that comes from Penny Impan Moer Bazar Raja Raja.